Hi, folks. Welcome back to Curtis Goes Corner. More about Judge Barrett. I have no hostility to the ACA, or in other words, the Affordable Care Act, or any other law. Democratic Senator Coons questions the Supreme Court nominee during the confirmation hearing. Now, she's a class act, and she is very sharp. Let's read. Amy Coney Barrett withstood hours of questioning Tuesday with poise, civility, and at times moments of humanity, countering the portrait of right-wing extremists that Democrats have attempted to paint of President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court, experts argued. That's the problem. The progressives and the leftists, or I should say, most liberal Democrats and Democrats have gone so far left to the progressive leftist side that as they move way left, it makes the other ones look extreme, which is not really the case. They haven't changed at all. The left has. Jeffrey McHale, professor of communication at DePaul University, said Barrett's professional responses and pleasant demeanor have undercut the narrative pushed by Democrats she is threatening or radical. Nothing more radical about her. She's a mother of 7 children, devout Catholic, number 1 in her class at Notre Dame Law School, which, if I'm not mistaken, she should be confirmed, and if she is, she would be the first justice in a very long time, maybe even ever, that didn't go to an Ivy League school, go to Notre Dame. Judge Barrett has had a most impressive day, McCall told Fox News. It is clear she is bright and sincere. Her poise and pleasant personality make her a natural for the television cameras, which will also make it increasingly difficult for opponents on the committee to trash her without themselves coming off as uncivil. Wow, they managed to. The low IQ senator from Hawaii, I forget her name, after she was involved in any impropriety sexually and all kinds of crazy stuff, it just, how these people got in positions of power is anybody's guess. Barrett, 48, responded to the scholarly legal questions with ease, and so did without hesitation, and without notes, I might add. She didn't bring any files to the hearing. At one point, held a black pad of paper to reveal she didn't take any notes at all. Through hours of answers, the even-keeled Barrett sought to reassure senators and the American public that she would dispatch justice fairly and independently, and she'd come to each case without any political agenda. Unlike the Democrats, progressives, and leftists, they always come with a political agenda. Always. Judges can't wake up one day and say, I have an agenda. I like guns. I hate guns. I like abortion. I hate abortion. And walk in like a royal queen and impose their will on the world. You have to wait for cases and controversies, which is the language of the Constitution, that wind their way through the process. Yes, the process is slow. Yes, the process is frustrating. But the Constitution is one of the most brilliant articles of government ever conceived. Ever conceived. You see your family in the background there in the picture. Democrats have driven home the message that Barrett was picked to fulfill the long-standing political goal of congressional Republicans and President Trump of overturning the Affordable Care Act. If confirmed, she would be in place for the November 10th hearing on the future of the law known as Obamacare, and Barrett has made comments in the past that were critical of the Supreme Court upholding the law in previous cases. She doesn't have an agenda when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. It's the legality of it. The legality of it. And even though I like Justice Roberts, he was very clever when he voted for it, saying it was just another tax. Talk to your legislators. It was very clever, but I was extremely disappointed. Democrats came armed with pictures on posters of children Americans with pre-existing conditions and shared their moving stories to Barrett to drive home the point that health care is on the docket in November. It's the law that's on the docket, not human beings. It may affect human beings, but the legislature writes the laws, not the judges. While Barrett repeatedly declined to say whether she would recuse herself from certain cases or else she rule on matters, which is common practice for Supreme Court nominees, she told senators she has no agenda and made no commitments to Trump. They wanted to recuse herself in case the Supreme Court had to decide who the winner was in the November 3rd election. Absurd. I'm not here on a mission to destroy the Affordable Care Act. I'm just here to apply the law and adhere to the rule of law. And they don't like that because progressives and leftists always use the judicial branch as another branch for the legislature. It's what they've always done. As long as you can go back to FDR and before, even Woodrow Wilson, and I'll reserve comment on him. Let's continue on. McCall said Barrett responded to accusatory questions with clarity. She's been able to come off as smart and professional, but without being pompous or aloof. She was fully up to the challenges of these hearings thus far and demonstrates the temperament that most Americans will want in Supreme Court justice. Not cold and calculating, but just looking at everything as evenly and as fairly as you can for being a human being. That's all. McCall said it has been difficult for the antagonists on the committee to paint Barrett as a threatening or radical, so Barrett seems to be winning the rhetorical battle, both in terms of arguments and television image. Senator Ben Sasse, Republican of Nebraska, made note of the portrayals that Barrett has faced. I've been amazed how many times the argument is American people be really, really scared. The person sitting before us obviously hates people and wants sick people to die and not have health coverage, Sasse said, which, of course, is ridiculous. While Barrett considers the late Justice Anton Scalia a mentor and said she prescribes the same judicial philosophy, the judge told senators just because Scalia's conservative icon ruled one way, including twice to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, it's not fair to assume she would decide the same. You would not be getting Justice Scalia, Barrett said. You'd be getting Justice Barrett. Good for you. Good for you. Some Democrats have described Barrett as a radical who was handpicked by Trump, dun, 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 to take away the health care from sick Americans in time for the November 10th Supreme Court case. Oh, yeah, he arranged Ginsburg's death. It's so crazy. And the problem is between 40 and 43% of the people believe all this stuff as if it's true. In the days leading up to the hearing, Democrats also warned that Barrett would do Trump's bidding. Yeah, it's his puppet, including taking away abortion rights and deciding a potential contested presidential election in his favor. Judge Barrett, your nomination for a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land comes before us under a cloud, said Dick Durbin. Yeah, he's another beauty. You have been nominated by a president who shows contempt for the Constitution. Show me where he's broken it. Show me where Trump has been in violation of the Constitution. Please. Yeah, he lies sometimes. Absolutely. Yeah, he's pompous. Yeah, he's an ass sometimes. He's a jerk. But you know what? Show me what violation of the Constitution he's done. He continues, but it does not hesitate to tell his loyal followers that you're being sent to the bench to do his political chores, abolish the Affordable Care Act, ruin his favorite election contest, and even more. But over hours of questioning on Tuesday, Barrett remained poised and steady without giving definitive answers. Good for you. To questions of recusal or specific cases, citing the so-called Ginsburg rule, how ironic, Barrett carefully chipped away at the extremist narrative of her record, and with help from friendly questions from GOP senators like Ted Cruz, she had a chance to humanize herself. Barrett, a mother of 7, described the challenges of her children's online learning during the pandemic. How she helps them practice the piano and lamented how she's lost her French language skills over time. Let me just put something in here. Any of the parents out there, mothers, fathers, grandparents even, if you want your son to marry anybody, you think it would be a woman just like her? Tell the truth now. Whether you can't stand her or whether you love her or you're somewhere in between. You would want your son to marry someone just like this. So if that's really the case and she's qualified, let's move on. And when Senator Dianne Feinstein of California marveled how well behaved her children were, 6 of whom were sitting behind her. Barrett quipped, "I have eyes in the back of my head." I'm sure they laughed over that. Well, most mothers do. Barrett condemned racism and discrimination. The jurist, the mom of 2 adopted black children from Haiti, said her family was moved to tears by the video of George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. "We wept together in my room." Barrett is a practicing Roman Catholic and has been actively anti-abortion in her private life, but told the committee that she did not oppose her personal beliefs on her legal rulings. "My life experiences don't dictate how I decide cases," Barrett said. Good for you. Senator Kelly Loeffler, Republican of Georgia, praised Barrett's poise throughout the marathon hearing that extended well into the evening. I'm sure it did. Even in the midst of attacks by Democrats, Judge Amy Coney Barrett has shown poise and positivity and proven her track record as a highly qualified jurist. Even by liberal think tanks called her highly qualified. That's all you need to know. This should be the end of the hearings. She's highly qualified. Loeffler told Fox News, "I'm confident Judge Barrett will be an originalist who will uphold the Constitution and apply the law as it is written, not like you want it to be. And I look forward to voting to confirm her as the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court without delay." Carr Tobias, the Williams Chair in Law at the University of Richmond, said despite the extremely partisan nature of the hearings, Barrett handled the rhetorical and even personal questions with respect and care. I think that Judge Barrett's responses to most questions that Senators posed were articulate, cautious, clear, patient, and respectful, while they suggested that she has balanced judicial temperament. He told Fox News. He added, "She seemed unfazed and calm in the face of some very even difficult and even inappropriate questions from senators on both sides of the aisle. Unfortunately, the tilted, staged, and extremely partisan nature of the hearing complicated efforts to exclude her views on many critical issues she might address as a justice." This week's hearing has been anything but conventional, as being held just days before the presidential election in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic that affected 2 members of the Judiciary Committee as well as the president. Democrats have unsuccessfully asked for the hearing to be delayed, of course. They would have a different reason if there wasn't a pandemic. Until the people decided the election, the stance the Republicans 4 years ago who held up Barack Obama's electioneer nominee of Merrick Garland. Let me say this one more time. Pretty much an unwritten rule. In an election year, whether it's your re-election or not, if there's a vacancy on the Supreme Court, if the party of the president and the majority party of the Senate are the same, it goes through. It's been that way since the 1880s. When Merrick Garland, who I have nothing against, he seems very qualified, was put up, it was a Democrat president and a Republican Senate in an election year. It's not the same. No more than illegal immigrants or immigrants. It's not the same. It's just a play on words. I know the Democrats were madder than heck. I know they were. But that's the way the ball bounces. But despite the unparalleled times for the nomination, the exchanges between senators and Barrett were measured and at times seemed like a traditional debate of legal ideas, albeit amid the backdrop of a hearing room with masked senators and hand sanitizing stations. The last time the Senate Judiciary Committee held a high court confirmation hearing was for the highly controversial nomination of Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was accused of sexual assault by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and 2 other women. The accusation sparked national outrage, especially among progressive women, while Republican senators in Trump lined up to defend Kavanaugh and decried a witch hunt. I don't even want to go into that. I just don't want to get aggravated. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, delivered a heated breakout speech in 2008 in defense of Kavanaugh and lambasted the Democrats for the sham attack on the jurist. But this time around, Graham marveled at the civility of the hearing and the non-combative nature of Barrett's exchanges with senators. "This is the way it should be done," said the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Well, yeah, maybe. You know, I A senator from Hawaii, her name escapes me now, said some really, really horrible things. Like, have you ever settled money out of court to make a sexual harassment case go away, and all kinds of really ridiculous stuff? See, here's their problem. The woman's practically a saint. She's incredibly intelligent, articulate, loves the law, knows the law, will give complex answers to many, many cases without notes. This is the progressives' worst nightmare. Not the nightmare that she'll rule, the nightmare that she's incredibly highly qualified and incredibly competent and sincere and not uses her emotions. She just looks at the law. And this is something they can't punch through. You can't accuse a woman with 7 kids who gets all kinds of accolades and is highly qualified, was the first in her class at Notre Dame Law School, and also was a professor there for many years. You can't get around. You were involved in all kinds of sexual assaults. You can't do that. So how do you go after her? Well, they went after her for her 2 children that are non-white. Blah, 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 blah. They have nothing. They're throwing all the spaghetti against the wall. It's a Teflon wall. None of it's sticking because it's nonsense. I have a sneaking suspicion. I thought she would be confirmed 52-48. My suspicion tells me it might be 54-46. But stay tuned. We'll have to see. I hope today was pretty civil, except for maybe a couple of spots. But the grandstanding of the Democrat senators was like, I'm watching it, and I come back 20 minutes later, and the same woman's still talking. Klobuchar. I used to like her years ago. She was a reasonable Democrat. I don't know what's happening to these people. Maybe they just need an intervention, like an alcoholic or a drug addict needs to be sat down and get an intervention to save their party. Because whether Trump loses or not, their party is in shambles, and it's burning down. Anyway, folks, that's the story on today's hearing. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time. I know time is short for everybody, and to have you listen to this, I'm very appreciative. And until next time, goodbye and good luck.